Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Live with Virginia NORML. I'm J.M. Padini, the Development Director for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws and the Executive Director of your favorite chapter, Virginia NORML. It's Friday, September 30th. Happy birthday to my sister. Feel free to drop some happy birthday emoji right in there for my sister. And since it's Friday, you know what that means. It's time to talk all things cannabis in the Commonwealth and answer your burning questions live. Look at that, Ryan. Happy Friday to you right off the bat. Hey, Cinnamon, it's your sister's birthday as well. Well, happy birthday to my youngest sister and to Cinnamon's sister as well. Hey, Ronson, good to see you. Hello, Joshua. Hey, Andrea, welcome back. Good to see everyone. Big surprise for everyone this week. We have a super special treat because we have guests for today's show. We've had guests a few times, but and I think maybe these were our guests before as well. I can hear them laughing next door. So it is a really, really rainy day here in Richmond. I imagine wherever you are in the state of Virginia, it's probably raining for you as well. And I hope you all are staying safe. But let's spice things up this week. Let's first of all answer all of your questions, of course. So if you have those, get ready to drop them in the comments for us. Also, take a quick second to go ahead and hit that like, follow, and subscribe button on whatever platform you're watching. I am super excited to welcome the guests for today's show. We have Jack and Michael from Rise Cannabis. That's the dispensaries that are out in the southwest corner of the state. I know you all have heard us talk about them a lot, and so it's really my pleasure to have them with us today. Everyone, go ahead and join me in welcoming Jack and Michael. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Awesome. Hey, Shanna, good to see you as well. Oh, hey, Mike. Okay. Mike's got a question for us right off the bat. This is a long one. I want to read the whole thing. Let's put it up here so everyone can see it. So Mike says, regarding Fourth Amendment's rights, how are prosecutors determining that people are using Delta 9 THC versus Delta 8 THC, where in states where Delta 8 is legal, given that Delta 8 is not federally prohibited? Well, so we're gonna put a pin in that idea right there. You'd like to hear NORML's thoughts on that. So the long and the short of it is they can't determine, there is no test to determine where the THC came from, whether it came from a plant that's legally called hemp or a plant that's legally called marijuana, let alone if the THC metabolites are from a synthesized cannabinoid. So when we're talking about Delta 8 THC, sure, it can naturally occur in very, very, very trace amounts in marijuana or in hemp or in cannabis or whatever you want to call it. But there's no Delta 8 product on any shelf today that is an extracted Delta 8. It's all synthesized from CBD that's essentially been cooked in battery acid. But back to your part about being federally legal, right? I know people are going to get super excited and start shouting Farm Bill at us in the comments, and that'll be neat. But if we're going to cite federal law, then we're going to go ahead and look at what the Controlled Substance Code says, while the Agriculture Improvement Act, Farm Bill, does legalize hemp. What it doesn't do is impact the Controlled Substances Code. And in the CSC, DEA is very clear that any chemically synthesized cannabinoids are considered Schedule 1. I'm sorry, any chemically synthesized tetrahydrocannabinols. So, this idea that, federal law makes Delta 8 legal is kind of a pipe dream. because the CSC is pretty clear on that, but you probably didn't want to debate that. What you wanted to know is, can they tell the difference? And the answer is no, they can't. So to that, I also would say, hey, friends, make good choices. All right. Hey, Ryan, what's up with you? Oh, hey, Daniel in Kentucky. Kentucky NORML, Daniel, by the way, is fantastic. And I would love to do a live with NORML, with Kentucky NORML. So you let them know. And maybe then we can get Lauren to do it. Hey, Nate in South Carolina. Hey, Jake, good to see you. All right, so let's get into some conversation with Jack and Michael. We have a couple of topics we want to cover today. Thank you, Cassidy, for going ahead and pulling the patient numbers. So as you know, July 1st of this year, patients still have to get the certification from a registered practitioner, but they don't have to register with the Board of Pharmacy in order to shop at a Virginia dispensary any longer. This is really an extraordinary improvement for patients to have this much faster access to Virginia dispensaries. And so as of today, we have 45,441 registered patients, but that's only the people who have registered to get a card. It doesn't speak to all of the patients that are certified and that are shopping at dispensaries right now. I know, Jack and Michael, you wanted to talk about patient access and what it's been like removing patient registration. What have you all noticed out in the Southwest at your dispensaries?
We actually deployed ourselves out to the dispensaries on the 1st because we were expecting a rush, and we definitely saw a rush. There were lines at all the dispensaries. I'm proud to say we served everybody that was in line that day, and it was a very hot day, so we took care of them with water and things like that. But it's just great when somebody walks into the dispensary and says, can I come shop there? And it's like, well, yeah, but it's going to be 8 weeks probably before you can come back. So it's nice to be able to give them the resources that they can get a card or get a certification quickly and get access to the medicine they need.
Yeah, it's really been an extraordinary improvement. And, I know that feels good for our team as well, to not have to field those calls and emails and just, people who are so upset that it's going to take so long for them to get their card and be able to shop. And now, it could honestly be the same day for some people.
Correct. Yep. We see that often.
I bet. Hey, let's take a couple of questions here. Oh, hello, Tom in New Orleans. Cool. Hey, Dwayne, I want to read your question here. Dwayne says, what if a certain Virginia shop opted to retail hemp/cannabis seeds? Well, because the definition of marijuana includes seeds, if you're selling seeds that are marijuana or cannabis, it's not legal in Virginia. And then as for whether or not you can sell hemp seeds, that's regulated by VDAX. So whatever VDAX's rules are on selling hemp is over there. But, while the DEA did make a move this year to issue their statement, their opinion that seeds, be they marijuana, or cannabis or hemp, the seeds are considered hemp in their opinion because seeds do not contain THC. That doesn't just immediately change Virginia law. It does make it easier for us to change Virginia law through legislation. Doesn't make it a slam dunk, but it makes the arguments a little easier. So we'll see, what happens in the 23 session. Hey, Jack and Michael, we've got a question right here from Jake. He wants to know if Rise carries organic cannabis products.
We're not certified organic by any means, but we don't use any chemicals or anything like that on them. So I think it's safe to say, do you agree?
Yes, there's no organic certification, but as organically as we possibly can.
Yeah, that's generally how I refer to it as well. We don't require USDA organic certification, which is the organic certification that exists, but our program does require pesticide use to comport with those restrictions. Here's a question we've got from B about the Delta 8. While there's no field test to differentiate between the two, they can test in a lab. Yes, laboratories absolutely can. An analytical laboratory for cannabis can determine the difference between Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, of course. But I believe that the question that was asked previously was not about the compound itself, but rather the individual. Could they tell if a person had used a particular product based on those?
And Dan, one comment there on the testing of that, the chromograph, am I saying that right?
Right.
Like the Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10 chromographs are very close together. So it actually is pretty difficult to really determine exactly which one it is.
Yeah, you need an adept scientist.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's right.
Right.
It's a very well calibrated HPLC.
Yes, absolutely. If that's the instrument you're going to use, so be it. We should have Dr. Peace on to have that conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. Here we've got a question. I wonder how often, Jack and Michael, you get this question down there. Do people ask you about firearms?
Absolutely. And our answer is we can't give legal advice, but that's what we have to say.
Yeah, so we're certainly not offering legal advice, but we do keep our guns and weed statement.
Yeah.
We call it guns and weed. So Rick is saying, just saw someone ask in a Virginia medical cannabis group about firearm purchasing and concealed carry permit. And could we go over that again? So I'm going to read our prepared statement. This is NORML's prepared statement. The consensus at NORML is that the conclusion reached by the ATF and the justices of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is based on a broad interpretation of a 1968 federal law forbidding the sale of firearms to those considered an unlawful user of or addicted to a controlled substance. At this point in time, though, no state is engaged in the sharing of data related to state-sanctioned activities of medical cannabis patients. So, unless a person responds yes to the question regarding their marijuana use on the NICS background check, the federal government has no real way to enforce this outdated law. Furthermore, since the passage of the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment, or many iterations that it has become since then, the Department of Justice can't use any federal funds to prosecute medical cannabis patients who are engaged in state-sanctioned activity. So the long and the short of it is, it all comes down to how an individual answers the question on the background check form. There's no way for the federal government to know. Do what you will with that, friends. Thanks so much for asking, Rick. Let's see. You're welcome, B. Glad I could answer that for you. And yes, you cinnamon, after it's metabolized, it is absolutely more difficult to discern what someone has ingested. Hello, Healing Green with Jason and Shelly in Michigan. Thanks for joining us. I like this question from James. What do you think, Jack and Michael? James says, I'm in a nursing home setting. I'm a licensed medical patient. Does the facility have to provide me a place to smoke? No. No, but there is code to accommodate patients who are in residential facilities. So you are legally allowed to possess your medicine. There's code to help the any residential facilities accommodate patients' use as well, and possession within a residential facility.
Just a reminder, that does not apply to skilled nursing care because of their federal issues.
Yeah.
So it is more just like Jan was saying, residential care, like assisted living.
Assisted living. Good to know. Thank you, pharmacist Michael. Okay, Marcy, fine. Oh goodness, have you all seen this?
Yes.
Okay, good. I mean, I guess Marcy is bringing up the recent bust in King George County, and Tamara, who is the curator of Cruel Consequences and also is the secretary of the Virginia NORML Board of Directors, was so kind as to call the King George County sheriff, and he got on the phone with her and was apparently very gracious and kind and enjoyed speaking with her. And she brought up the fact that the way the article, or not the article, the way the post that the King George County Sheriff office made on their Facebook page, the way it was phrased really made people think that they're just going around seeing that someone's plants are visible from a public way and they're not tagged properly. They're getting search warrants. They're going after them. That's not the case. It didn't take much time to do a few searches to see that this was not a case of someone's plants weren't tagged. This is someone that they clearly had suspicion about other activities. And let's be frank, like, you're not going to get a search warrant on a $25 civil penalty. What's the, that's all that there was. Even if the plants were visible from a public way, even if they weren't tagged, and there were 4 of them, then that would have been what? $200 in civil penalty for each. I guess if you get even if you get to stack up those infractions like that, no one's going to issue a search warrant. That's not what it was. We never thought that's what it was. And the King George County Sheriff confirmed that's absolutely not what it was, and that honestly wasn't their intention, to freak people out like that. But the good news is now they know better, and so hopefully they will do better if they post any additional content about things like that. Yeah. So we've been hearing about this for a while. People saying that they're seeing helicopters flying, that they're doing busts down in Southwest, and maybe they are.
We have firsthand knowledge of that, JM.
One of my relatives was, they planted their 4 plants. They had some volunteers come up outside of the little fenced area that they had made. They were properly tagged. State police helicoptered in with a federal agency and seized the 3 volunteer plants that were not tagged and left. No charges, just
took the 3 plants and ran.
That sounds like the best possible outcome, I guess.
Yes.
Huh. So, oh, hey, Rick. Rick asks, Rick, you're asking about the guns and weed statement. And yes, if you go to the Virginia NORML website and look on the medical FAQs, I believe, and Cassidy can post a link to it, I believe that the guns statement is toward the bottom of the medical FAQs. Hey, JT. Hi, Carrie. Good to see you. Hello, Britta in Ohio. Oh, Mike's got more deep questions for us. Not burning questions, deep questions. Can we clear up the fact that the federal government is taking tax on the cannabis industry? Yes, they are. In states where it is legal. Yes, they are. Mike says it is my understanding it's not an excise tax, but they are taking sales tax, and they are taking business tax licensing fees, and they are taxing employees working there through their FICA taxes. Jack and Michael?
So there's an IRS code 280E that applies to the cannabis industry, and so we can only deduct cost of goods sold. Normal business expenses like travel and even equipment purchased to a certain degree aren't deductible. So we're paying tax on the money, plus we're paying tax on the money we spend. So that's where they're kind of getting us.
And your employees are paying taxes.
Right.
Correct.
Correct. We don't, in Virginia, there's no sales tax on it because it's medicine, but
Other than accessories.
right, the non-cannabis items are sales tax, yes.
And there will be a tax on adult use cannabis in Virginia one day. One day. One day. Remember, elections have consequences, friends. James, glad to hear that that the work that we've done here is making it easier for you. Appreciate that. All right, awesome. Good to see you here, Jason and Shelly. All right, Bernie. Bringing it back around real quick for us. So Bernie wants to know. Bernie says that they're just joining us, and okay, wants to know about the Virginia Commonwealth Attorney General coming down on hemp products that are Delta 8, Delta 9 products. So, sort of. There was legislation to address unregulated cannabinoid products in the 2022 General Assembly, but it didn't really go anywhere. What happened is it got translated into some budget language, and there are two parts to this. There's the budget language that pertains to VDAX, which regulates hemp, and specifically VDAX. There's a food safety program within VDAX, and they are already authorized to make rulings, issue positions and regulations on food adulterants, and that's what happened. VDAX, this food safety program, put out a statement that it considers synthesized cannabinoids to be adulterants, and so they're not permissible in food products. Of course, VDAX only regulates businesses that sell food. So if your business doesn't sell food, VDAX doesn't really have any enforcement mechanism over you, and the enforcement mechanisms that they do have are pretty weak. They can wag their finger at you and say, don't sell that, and then maybe send you a warning letter. It's not the same as if a penalty were codified in code, in law. And then there is the Office of the Attorney General, which within the OAG, there is the Office of Consumer Protections. And they had asked that the Office of Consumer Protections be authorized to take action on behalf of consumers who are harmed by cannabis products, and that did not exist. The OCP can't take action without authorization. And so there was language in the budget that allows the Office of Consumer Protections to essentially go after a retailer or a producer of unlicensed cannabis products if it harms a consumer. So it's not they're not running in there with guns after people, but a complaint could be made, and then OCP could step in. So that's what's up, Bernie. Now, there was legislation trying to address this issue in 22, and you can fully expect to see it again in 2023. To those people who are super angry and upset about it, the advice that we generally offer is to welcome regulation. I get it. It's a lot cheaper and easier to not have to be regulated, but it's not how America works. We take pride in particular in assuring public and consumer safety, and that cannabis is no different. So the best way is to learn to embrace regulation and to be forthright and just accepting of it and participate in that conversation. It's a lot easier than crossing your arms and standing in the corner and saying, no, I don't want to. It's not gonna end well for those people. Let's read some more comments. Hey, Jack and Michael, let's talk about the need for more dispensaries in Virginia. By the way, we have what, just shy of 8.5 million people in Virginia?
Correct.
And we have how many active dispensaries in Virginia right now?
There's 12.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've got 2 more coming pretty soon, but
Seems reasonable for 8.5 million people. 12 dispensaries. What could go wrong?
Right. And especially in our region, we're the largest geographic region, so people are having to drive pretty far distances to get to a dispensary since we're so limited on the number we can have.
God, your region out there, your health service area for Southwest is the largest geographical region.
Correct. Right? And we do deliver within our entire HSA and even up into some HSA 1 territory where there's no access. Looking to expand that, hopefully statewide before the end of the year. Still kind of working on the logistics of that. But
anyone that's going to order needs to make sure they're ordering from the Abingdon delivery menu because all the deliveries run out of the Abingdon facility.
Right. Oh, good to know. Good to know. Yeah. Especially important for those folks who are in Health Service Area 1 that doesn't have any dispensaries at all right now.
And one thing to note too about that is even if you live in a county that we don't deliver to, and we can certainly provide our delivery map, but like we know people, like we go to Charlottesville, for example, people will drive and like meet someone at like Wegmans and get their cannabis delivered there. It's not that it has to be, there's no regulation that it has to be delivered to like your home or your business. It's just, you have to be the one physically present at whatever address you agree on to accept the product.
Super helpful to know. Super helpful to know. I'm looking here in the notes in our need for more dispensaries section. And we were talking about Health Service Area 1, that license has been embroiled in a lawsuit for like going on 2 years now. There hasn't been any, meaningful action recently on that. I think what's interesting to compare, let's talk about Rhode Island and Virginia. So Virginia is roughly 42,775 square miles. Whereas Rhode Island is 1,214 square miles. Rhode Island will have 24 dispensaries by the end of this year. I'm just going to guess that they don't have 8.5 million people living in Rhode Island. I'm sure Cassidy will let us know if there are, in fact, 8.5 million people living in 1,200 square miles. I know Cassidy loves when I spring these last minute questions. I can't wait for the answer to appear in the chat. Hello, James in Alabama. Thanks for joining us. I see it. Perfect. Thank you, guys. The answer is about 1 million people live in Rhode Island. So just a little bit less than Virginia. About as many people that each health service area, except for HSA 2, serves. Right? It's all like about 1.5 million people per HSA, except for the tiny little Nova one, which is like 2.2 or something. Yeah. Wild. That would be like, by that comparison, Health Service Area 2 should have 48 dispensaries. Thanks, Rhode Island, for keeping us honest. Oh, man. Oh, look at this. Oh, I got a question from Fonz. He always has a spicy question. When do Jack and Michael anticipate the THC levels in Virginia will be as high as they are in other states?
Once we leave the Board of Pharmacy.
Coming from a pharmacist.
Oh, snap. But I'm interested, Fonz, like in what regard, what do you mean about THC levels being as high? What types of products are you talking about? Because I ask, this is a genuine question, by the way. I ask because a lot of the cartridges are really high.
Mhm.
You want them to be pure.
We've got one on the market now that's north of 80, and I saw a C of A come through this morning. I can't remember which flavor it was, but we've got several more that are going to be over 80% on the vape side.
So that's a lot. And then
we had a 36% animal face flower out at one point. We're trying. It is a plant, so you got to kind of like baby it a little bit.
Right.
It doesn't grow like a weed, that's for sure.
And then, of course, there are the edible products, and that is where we get into the actual THC limitation on products. Currently, we are restricted by state law to 10 milligrams per individual dose. That's each single dose. Think of it like a tablet of Advil, not your dosage, which does not have any limitation. One dose of Advil would be one tablet, but the dosage you take would be, 2 or 3 tablets. So we did try in the 2022 session, it was in a bill. We did try to move up from 10 milligrams per dose to 20 milligrams, but I think that some important lessons were learned, and we don't need to ask every member of the General Assembly what they think about every minute detail of every single bill. And we'll try this again in 2023. And hopefully some other lobbyists that work on it will just be smarter about their approach. We should be able to increase that. I mean, it's really not, it's cost prohibitive for patients that need higher doses to have to, have a bunch of edible, eat a lot of them or whatever, just to get the dose they're trying to get to. It would be great if we could, in Virginia, dispense high THC products, particularly for those who need it, like our oncology patients that really need to have a lot to, do things like reduce tumors. Oh, Sue, thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sue. Hey, Tamara, good to see you here. Tamara says Sheriff Giles asked her to keep his number after talking to him, and that she's going to keep that conversation going. Appreciate you reaching out to him, Tamara, for everyone.
And hi, Tam, by the way.
Oh, hello, Medical Wellness Center of Virginia. Thanks for all of your support for our work. Glad to see you here. And look at that. I don't know, Jack and Michael, who are on the other side of that wall. If you click on the comments thing in the,
yep.
Okay,
we're watching them.
Perfect. Hey, here's a question from Medical Wellness Center of Virginia. They want to know what the new Rise location will be.
Drum roll. Bristol is actually going to be our next location. We've acquired property there, working on the planning and floor plans and stuff for that. And then we actually have signed a lease for a property in Danville, which I know has been a major place that people have been asking us to come. So give us a couple months and there'll be a Rise Danville opening. So.
Oh, I know people must be so excited about that. We do hear about Danville a lot.
Yep.
And I do see someone asking when we're going to open one in Richmond. We can't at this point. The way the legislation is worked on based on the health service areas, we can't build a facility outside of our health service area. But we do distribute our product to the dispensaries here.
Right. We brought a wholesale order up with us yesterday. So it's important to tell any dispensary that you're going to, if you want a specific product from Dharma or Rise, let them know, and then I work with them each week to wholesale products between each other so that we're covering all the bases. Like, we don't make a pressed tablet. Columbia Care does. It's a very popular product for us. We buy as much as we can. So it's just letting the people know what you want is super important.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Jack, because we do, counsel patients in that regard regularly, that if there's a product on which you are relying, you ought to tell the pharmacist at the dispensary sooner rather than later so that they know to order more if it's not something that they're producing in-house, and that if it's something they're producing in-house, then they're going to pay attention and make sure that's available. And hey, to anyone who's watching, you should be able to contact any of the dispensaries through their website. If you're having difficulties doing that, just reach out directly to us, and we can help you, get your message straight over to them. Here's a nice comment from Rick, who in fact has told us how much they enjoy Rise. But here Rick says, I want to say again, what a great customer experience. I had it both.
We greatly appreciate those good customer reviews.
Yeah. 5 stars are great.
Oh, I love it. Oh, hello, Melissa. Good to see you. All right, Jeff. Let's see. Jeff's gonna. Speaking of Bristol, let's talk about Tennessee. Jeff says, so is Tennessee legalization bill still on the table, or is the bill dead for this year? Tennessee's not going to legalize adult use in 2022. Doesn't mean there won't be a bill addressing it in 2023. Now, what I can tell you, Jeff, is that Tennessee NORML has gone through a complete reorganization process this year. So absolutely get dialed in with them. If you need to be connected, you can just send us an email at chapters@norml.org, and we'll get you connected. I think it's helpful for other states around us to see that if we can do this here in Virginia, you can do that in your state as well. You really have to dig in and make those connections, understand how your legislature works, and be willing to take the small, not at all sexy steps. People whined and complained like a lot, those who were paying attention, when Virginia just did a little bit in 2015, just did a little bit. And then we did a little bit in 2016, a little bit in 2017. And people were annoyed by that it wasn't good enough. But if we hadn't done all of those little tiny, steps, we hadn't said, okay, just for these people, and okay, just for these people, and okay, but an affirmative defense. If we hadn't jumped through all those hoops, then we wouldn't be where we are today. And so no one's saying that incrementalism is ideal, but it's great to have ideals in advocacy. It's also really important to be pragmatic and realistic, and to take the wins where you can, because then you can take another step forward the next year. So, aim high, have realistic expectations, and just keep pushing forward. You can get there. Look, we did it here, and if you can do it in Virginia, hey, you can probably do it anywhere.
One quick note, JM, we actually have had 2 Tennessee legislators tour our facility. So there is a little bit of interest. What we're hearing is, as long as the governor is the governor, is it Lee?
Yes. Governor Lee will always veto, is what we've been told.
Right.
Well, you heard it right here, folks. Listen, if you want to get your representatives in Tennessee a tour of a sweet, sweet cannabis cultivation and dispensing facility, just reach out to us and we'll put you in contact with Rise out in that corner of the state, and we'll get them squared away.
Yep.
Hey, Michael, I love your question. Michael asks if increasing the number of medical dispensaries is an achievable goal in the 23 session here in Virginia. I think yes. I think it's a heavy lift, Michael. Like, don't get me wrong, nothing going to be easy about that. But you didn't ask if it's going to be easy. Yes, it's going to be achievable. And I think honestly that there's an appetite for that, particularly given that there remains no dispensaries in Health Service Area 1. Now, I'm not saying that we are going to go down the same path and do the same licensing process that we did, back in 2017 for the existing processors, where you required vertical integration and all that stuff. But I think that once medical moves over to Cannabis Control Authority, then CCA could do an additional round of licensing, moving away from the vertical model and licensing retail only. We call retail only is called cannabis dispensing facility in Virginia right now for medical. And I think that's the most important aspect at this point. Let's go back to where we talked about how there's 8.5 million people and 12 dispensaries. Sure, we will need additional production at some point in time. But right now, what we really, really need are for people not to have to drive to the Wegmans parking lot or drive 3 hours to pick out their own products. And I think there is a growing appetite in the legislature for additional medical licensing, particularly the method that will bring it most quickly. So it's about 6 months from the time of issuing a license to a dispensary being open. When it's a retail only location, you can do that in 6 months. If we're going to say, oh, well, let's just wait and see what happens with this lawsuit, by the time the lawsuit's resolved in HSA 1, whenever that is, it could still be 2 years before that facility's ever open. So
we've done it twice. It takes that long.
Yes, it does. that was very much pushing it.
So, I mean, what do you all think? What are your vibes on, the prospects for a medical expansion bill in 23?
I agree with you. It's a very heavy lift, but I think we have a very qualified team of lobbyists and partnering with NORML, and I think we can push it as far as we can.
People deserve access. It's just,
Sure.
there's so much conversation. I had a call this morning with former Secretary of Public Safety, Brian Moran, and we talked a lot about how the conversation has entirely devolved into who gets to make a buck first or next on Virginians on cannabis, and it's a really small group of people, right? We've got 8+ million people over here, right? About 20% of them might be consumers. And then we've got a handful of people, even in a fully mature market, adult use marketplace, a handful of people, they're going to be license holders. And it seems like the entire conversation legislatively is focused on this handful of people instead of millions of Virginians who don't have access. And I just explained, I was like, well, I don't know why we're even asking these questions and why we're continuing to allow the focus to be in that direction. Let's do something for Virginians. Happy Friday to you as well, Amy. Thanks for joining us. Oh, okay. James has a question. Another question. When adult use becomes legal, will there be any point to having a medical card?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Avoiding taxes.
Yes, as Michael astutely pointed out, medical cannabis is not taxed in Virginia.
Yeah, I think Shanna had ran some numbers, one of our other partners, and I believe the number is if you spend around $700 a year on medicine in the program, it would behoove you to stay a medical patient versus moving to the recreational side and paying taxes.
Well, and that was also including the patient registration,
right.
which is no longer required.
True. Yeah.
So even, I don't know the numbers, but I would think a smaller amount would still behoove you to remain medical.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get a recertification you can get a certification for as low as $100. And if you're getting a recertification, they're generally around $60. So it's, you're probably going to pay more in taxes than $60. And also think about, once we do, James, expand into adult use, those products are going to be at a lower strength. than medical products. And that's pretty consistent throughout the US, where the allowance for medical products is higher than the allowance for adult use products. And Virginia, in at least the last 2 rounds, had proposed a 5 milligram per serving for adult use products, which is really low for the United States. So yeah, higher strength products, no taxes.
And Shanna has a good point. She's listening. Workplace protections.
Thank you, Shanna. Yeah, that's for certain. Look, the only employment protections that are extended to cannabis consumers in Virginia are for those who are medical cannabis patients. You have to have the written certification. You don't have to have the card, just a certification. And we could have extended that to adult use consumers as well, but elections have consequences. So now we can't, because there's no appetite for that in the current legislature, at least on the House side. Let's see what else we got. What other questions do we have? Melissa, I see your question. I think we already answered that. Tamara says, hello, happy Friday, Wade. Fawn says, asking about flour that's consistently around or above 30%.
Yeah, we're getting real close to that.
Here's a question for you all from Medical Wellness Center. Wants to know if there's a minimum dollar amount on your delivery.
There is not. There are zones, so you pay like a flat fee per band, and then there is a percentage charge as well that I can't remember what that is. Do you remember?
I want to say
6%. Yeah. So, but I mean, think about it. We go to Charlottesville for, I think, $13 plus 6%. I mean, you're not driving in gas prices, to Salem for that. So. Yeah,
that's a convenience fee. I think a lot of folks would be willing to pay.
Right.
Here's a comment from Crow Consequences about product availability.
We did deliver to Columbia Care last week, I believe. So hopefully, I don't know if you're talking about specifically Virginia Beach and not Portsmouth, because I don't know how they distribute them between the 2 stores, but they did place a fairly large order last week.
Thanks for letting us know. Hey, Unique, I can't tell if you're asking us a question or someone else, so I'm sorry if I mentioned your question. Please just post it again. Hello, Shalom. Shalom wants to know, where is Texas standing with medical legalization? Your understanding is that you can get it through certain approved doctors, but it's, of course, a process. It's a process in every state. Interestingly, so back in the day, Texas, Georgia, and Virginia had this similar limited licensure, low THC, at least from the outside looking in, proposal, this limited licensure, limited access model. We blew the doors off that here in Virginia. And my colleague, Jax James, who is, like me, the executive director of a state chapter, but also works at NORML. She's our state policies manager. Jax runs Texas NORML and is doing an incredible job there expanding patient access. So I do know that you can get certified and shop at dispensaries in Texas right now, and their edible and tincture products seem to be pretty on par with what we have here in Virginia. I think that their language is 5%. And so that really, when you look at that in a liquid product, that means 50 milligrams per milliliter, which is a lot. So Shalom, if you need any help getting connected, you can just shoot us an email at chapters@norml.org, and I'll connect you directly with Jax for any questions you have about Texas's medical program. Oh, hello, friend. Good to see you, and thanks for Quoting Stacey Abrams, another friend of mine just posted a picture of herself and her husband with Stacey last night. And yeah, I think that's very true. Sure, success could be about winning, but not necessarily. And it is, in fact, about progress. And that's what we practice here in Virginia. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Eventually, you'll get somewhere. Let's all laugh at JT's question. I wonder if national decriminalization, I don't know what that means, JT, but Chuck Schumer does, will be gone before I die. How will they? Oh, okay, yes. Okay, so once upon a time, Chuck Schumer decided to say federal decriminalization, and that's not really a thing, Chuck, but if you want to use those words, okay. What he means is descheduling, removing marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act and allowing states like Virginia to continue setting their own policies free from federal interference. When is that going to happen? As soon as we have a Congress and or a president who takes it seriously. That's not this one. But I think in this Congress and under this federal administration, I think there is a possibility that we will be able to pass a Safe Banking Act. And I know that's not everything all at once, and sure, incrementalism sucks, but let's be pragmatic and let's keep putting one foot in front of the other. Passing the Safe Banking Act not only, provides some amount of financial access to cannabis businesses, but it really would be the federal government's first real legitimate recognition of the cannabis industry, which is roughly 10 times the size in the United States of the coal industry. Wild, right? People love to talk about, coal. It only employs like 20,000 people. Oh, here's a question for Jack and Michael. Are there any educational requirements for people working in dispensaries?
Yes.
Well, not all positions.
Not all,
Some
but
positions, yes. There are entry-level positions, but like the lead grower has to have a certain degree, the scientist has to have a certain degree, and pharmacy techs, things like that. But we have entry-level positions in packaging and even in the lab, learning things and cultivation.
And then we also have patient care coordinators that are non-pharmacy technicians working in the dispensaries. A lot of times they're working with intake, trying to get new patients registered, verifying their documents, all that sort of thing. And then the pharmacy technicians work with the pharmacist on the floor for the actual dispensing.
Awesome question. Thanks so much, Jason and Shelley. Just a quick little note here from Sharon says, when I was living in Maine, medical was cheaper than adult use by almost half. Wow. Here's a question from James for you, Jack and Michael.
So we do deliver to Salem. It would not be to the Rise location. It would be to your home. But again, like Michael said, no matter where you are, you need to go to the Abingdon menu and click the delivery menu, and then you can have it delivered to Salem, Lynchburg, wherever. So that's don't go to the Salem store thinking you're going to order delivery from them. You got to go to Abingdon.
This is just kind of comical here, and they're not wrong. B says they told their friend that it seems easier to become elected to the Senate or House than to sell cannabis legally in New Jersey or Virginia. That's funny. And look, that really speaks to what I was talking about why we're not we personally, but the legislative conversations prioritize who gets to make a buck first or next off the backs of Virginians. Well, there's really just a handful of people that are going to get to do that. Look, we're not going to solve capitalism or racism with marijuana policy. We can try to make it better. And I think that, collectively, we all do hold these policy changes to a higher standard than, say, policies around cell phone companies or alcohol or pharmaceuticals, right? They're not trying to diversify. I don't hear these loud arguments about, promoting equity within who owns a liquor store. We do hear that in cannabis, and so I think we're all collectively doing the work to build a more just and equitable industry. But cannabis policy isn't going to solve America's problems.
And B, it's not impossible. We did it.
Right?
We were a local company.
I was telling Jack and Michael this before we started the show that, we often hear from people who are, really upset that cannabis companies own the big cannabis companies own the cannabis companies in Virginia, the cannabis licenses in Virginia. And I have to say, whoa, wait a minute. There were 5 licenses awarded initially, and 3 of them went to Virginia applicant groups. Everyone has since, sold their license, but, as a state, we're not in the business of telling Virginians that they can't make money and can't succeed. And so why in the world do we, tell Jack and Michael, oh, you as Virginians applied and you won and you got a cannabis license and you can't sell it? I mean, that's just laughable. And that's exactly what happened with the cannabis applicant group, the Virginia applicant groups that did win these 3 licenses. And that's, like high five for them, right? I'm so glad. Unlike the other applicant groups though, Jack and Michael stayed around, and we're so glad that you all are still here and still committed to doing this work and involved in the process and advocating for Virginia patients.
Big shout out to Shanna as well. She's not with us, but she's the reason we're here. So thank you, Shanna.
Yeah, Shanna. Why didn't you come up with Jack and Michael?
Our joke. She's too straight up. We can't have her around the politicians.
Shanna, you're not wrong. Shanna's far too direct and honest. Can you imagine me and Shanna? Don't scare anyone right now. Oh. Wow. Look, Fawn said it, and holy moly. For those of you who watch this show, and I think Fawn's made some really smart comments and asked some really tough questions. And I mean, this is it. Like, read the room, kids. It's not to say these issues aren't important, but look, look who controls the administration and the House. And we just don't have a path forward, the same path forward that we had in the 2021 session. And we could have done a lot of things in the 2021 session. Unfortunately, some members of the Democratic caucus saw what they believed to be political expediency in slapping a reenactment on the legalization bill and kicking it down the road for another year. They could have done everything in 2021 and we'd be done, but they didn't. And so they kicked it over to 2022, a large chunk of it. Elections went the way they did, and now we're stuck with a legislature that just doesn't want, half a legislature that doesn't want to touch this issue, and an administration that's totally hands off and says, well, it's a legislative decision, and if you get it to us, then we'll think about what it says. So, I mean, Fonz hits that nail right on the head.
JM, I see one other thing we need to get an answer out to from JT.
Mm-hmm.
Asking about the terpenes, and the bud tender was clueless. Totally understand that, but realize the pharmacy technicians that are on the front line and the PCSs are not authorized to give you advice on those. So that's when it's important that you meet with your pharmacist while you're there, and they can get you the information that you need.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Michael. And I think we're really fortunate in Virginia. People talk about, whether a medical program is really a medical program. And I think Virginia stands out in the U.S. for a number of reasons. Not only the fact that we don't have a made up list of conditions decided by legislators that, doctors have to adhere to, but, that we have delivery. We don't require you to register anymore. And we have pharmacists on site at every single dispensary, whenever they're open, that that patients can meet with while they're there and ask these questions and get that real medical guidance, based on their own specific situation. And even after they leave, just like if you were on antibiotics and you had some questions after a couple days, you could call CVS and ask them, your questions. You do the same thing with our dispensaries here in Virginia. You can call and ask your questions. And I think that's an extraordinary benefit to Virginians to be able to have pharmacists, and not just any pharmacists, but pharmacists who have education in cannabis specifically. Thanks for your question, JT. So Medical Wellness Center of Virginia wants to clarify. Wait, hold on. When did this? Wasn't there a...
So the answer is they do not need a new certificate. The 2021, was I saying that right?
I can't
The ones
remember.
that were issued in 2021 are still valid.
Correct.
As of all of those should be gone pretty much. All new ones as of August 1 need to be on the new form. If not, they are not valid. And if they are not completely filled out by the provider, we cannot alter them.
Perfect. So Medical Wellness Center, I know you know these answers because we talk, but and I know you have that new certificate. But patients, listen, if you got certified this year, August 1st or later, it needs to be on the new form. You can tell it's the new form because it has the state seal at the top. You're welcome. If not, you should be able to go back to your provider and get that corrected. Oh, thanks, Jason and Shelley. Good to see you. Come back anytime. Just going to leave JT's comment up here and keep scrolling. Yeah, that's interesting, Carrie. That's super interesting, Carrie. If your patients have a problem like that, then they can just call us and we can facilitate the remediation of whatever the situation is. Just call me. Oh, that's so nice. I'm so glad to hear that worked out for you, B. Well, this has been a really exciting show. We've had so much engagement. Thank you so much, Jack and Michael, for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
I just love the conversation that we were able to have with everyone today. Hey, everyone, I hope that you have the best weekend possible, despite perhaps some drizzly weather. Be safe wherever you are. And I hope to see you all back here next week. Again, thanks so much to Jack and Michael from Rise Dispensaries here in Virginia for joining us. Love to have you back anytime.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, wherever you're watching, be sure to hit that like, follow, or subscribe button so you never miss a live from NORML. If you're not a NORML member yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Head straight over to norml.org/join and get your membership card. I can't wait to send you your card personally. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you back here next week.
Bye, everybody.